I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along. Thank you for tuning in, checking us out. We want to invite you to know more about what we're doing here. Our flagship operation is our weekly newspaper, Inside News. Conversations with Al McFarlane started off as a project to connect our reporting staff with community members. We used to meet in a place called, for a staff meeting, a restaurant in the neighborhood called Lucille's Kitchen. Lucille's Kitchen became like a celebrity venue. By the way, the owner of it, whose namesake the restaurant bore, Lucille Williams, died last week. Her homegoing services, her transition to ancestorship observations will be in the week ahead. But Lucille's Kitchen was a popular venue right here in North Minneapolis where we assembled every either Monday morning or Tuesday morning, and after a while went to live radio on KMOJ, live radio on KFAI, and created a space where people could collect each other, collect our own ideas, project our ideas, and talk to each other about what it means to be in community, what it means to be creators of community, co-authors of futures that benefit our existence, that respect and reflect our culture, our history, and that celebrate our future. It's a great story. In the time that we did that, we were also doing innovative outreach to community people with the newspaper. We were doing door-to-door distribution in North Minneapolis and in South Minneapolis, I believe. By the way, we have, as a consequence of COVID-19, pivoted back to that strategy of connecting to our people in our neighborhood, in our homes. So presently, our newspaper, Inside News, has a weekly press run of 35,000 copies, making us the largest free distribution community newspaper weekly in the state of Minnesota. And historically, the distribution has been focused on around 12,500 for the northern half of the city, north side, northeast, and in the north and west suburbs, about 12,500 copies into the south side of Minneapolis and southwest suburbs, in Bloomington, Richfield, and places south and east and west. And we also had around 10,000 copies distributed on newsstands in St. Paul, targeting, centering in the Summit University, Rondo community, but extending out to the suburbs, including Roseville and Maplewood and some of the southern suburbs of St. Paul as well. The concept has always been that Insight would be centered in, speak from the heart of the Black community here in Twin Cities in Minnesota, and speak to all of us and for all of us. Not only would it speak to us, but it would speak to the rest of the world, bringing our voice, our vision, our attitude, our expectations into the public idea square. That's what we've done. And as I mentioned of late, because of COVID-19 and the fact that many of the venues and community that we use for newsstand distribution over the past, 15, 20 years, were shut down or severely reduced in their traffic with the quarantine and the general tamping down of movement in community. So we decided to pivot back to the previous strategy, that is create massive door-to-door distribution. We returned to the root idea, and we began doing door-to-door distribution at the center of the three neighborhoods that we originated in. So right now we're doing about 5,000 copies door-to-door in North Minneapolis between Olson Highway up to just above Lowry, up to about 35th or so. In South Minneapolis, we're doing 5,000 copies door-to-door from around 26th Street up to about 35th, 38th Street in South Minneapolis, from Hennepin west to about, I think it's Cedar Avenue. It varies depending on the topography and the geography of the community. And finally, We are doing door-to-door distribution in the Rondo neighborhood in St. Paul. By the way, we're announcing this now. We intend to rebrand our St. Paul edition and call it, the name is not finalized yet, but the working title for the new St. Paul edition will be the Rondo, either Rondo Times or the Rondo Griot. We'd love your feedback, your advice or suggestion. If you have different names, if you live in the Rondo neighborhood, you have an idea of what you'd like to see the Rondo newspaper be called, the Rondo edition of Inside News be called, call us up, write us, drop us an email. You can reach me by email at al at Inside News. It's real easy, al, A-L, at insidenews.com. And drop me your suggestion, your idea. Also, if you have ideas that you want us to cover in Rondo community, we'd love to have that as well. Well, all of this is a circular way of sort of reflecting on the history of Inside News, our mission, our passion. And before I came down to set up for this podcast, I wanted to also look at kind of where we've come from. I've got a video actually that we're going to share in a few seconds that talked about us executing the videos, the distribution strategy of door to door when we did that some years ago, and how that led to us connecting with consumers, but also how we embarked on a path of collaboration, cooperation with other ethnic media to figure out how we could bring a business argument that valued our existence as consumers and that spoke to our interest. But in thinking about that and planning for that, I look back at the early Insight News. And if you don't know this, I started Insight in 1974. In fact, here is the cover of Volume 2. Let me hold it up. Volume 1, Number 2. So the first year, this is the very second edition of Insight ever created. This was Insight the magazine. And this is Volume 1, Number 2. I always tell people, I thank the people at U.S. Bank. Their U.S. Bank Northside affiliate, First Plymouth Bank, was my first advertiser, and they've been a consistent advertiser even through and to today. So kudos to U.S. Bank for their consistent, persistent, and positive embrace of the information, challenges and opportunities and needs for our community, and their support of Insight News. I worked for a printing company in Northeast Minneapolis called Graphic Services. And when I started working there, they printed trade magazines, one called Midwest Motor Transport. They had one called Twin Cities Tool and Digest Journal, one called Purchasing Management. So it was a printing company, a magazine publishing company that did technical and trade publications. It did them well. It had the equipment, the setup, and everything. So my job there was both selling printing, but also I was the head of a new division at the company called Midwest Public Relations. I was vice president for that. Still 24, 25 years old, young guy. And in my own mind, if nobody else was a young firebrand, a person with passion, with desire, with confidence and belief and a vision that we could create things that reflected our sense and sensibility. I went to the boss, a guy that owned the company, Bob Burns. I call his company Bob Burns University because you got a lesson, you got a learning in education and toughness by working in that company. So I am grateful for the experience. But I said, look, Mr. Burns, let me start a magazine for the neighborhood that I live in North Minneapolis. You got all the production capacity here. I have an interest. I think there's a market. There's an idea that something could be created that could bring profit to this company and serve my community, serve the businesses in it. He said, yes. So we launched Insight, I think, in about September of 1974 as a magazine. This is the October 1974 edition. And if I can flip through it a little bit, I'm proud of this. I really am proud of the work that we did. I have another camera here. I don't know if I can use both cameras. Let me see if I can or not. until I do, I'll just use this one. Well, here we are. And I don't know if this one's in the studio, not AZ. I'll put enter the studio. So we want to cancel them. Okay. So are you hearing feedback, AZ, or not? Yeah, I'm kind of hearing it. I can turn the volume down on this one. Okay, there. So here is the Inside News, Inside Magazine. I want to kind of flip through it and show you some of the pages that we did that are very nice. I can do this in a way that makes sense. But this was an open letter to the community from 5th Ward City Council member Van White. Oops. And this is significant because Van White, at this point in time, was the chairperson of the Willard Homewood organization. Hold on here. Got an automatic deal here for my second camera, but it's not automatically working the way I want it to. Hold on. There you go. Okay. So Van White was chair of Willard Homewood organization, and at that point in time wrote, if there's a vacant house on your block or homes need to be rehabbed, you'll be interested in what I have to say. Several years ago, when I was elected to Willard Homewood organization, I was very optimistic about seeing our community receive much needed facelifts. There is every indication that federal monies were going to be made available to rehab some of the houses in our neighborhood, and that many of the vacant homes could be repaired and inhabited. However, the monies to be made available for those types of programs were frozen, and it looked as if the community would have to suffer long, small dribblings according to the whims of the federal government. He goes on to say that as things worked out, the monies were unlocked, and lots of money flowed into North Minneapolis, into Willard Homewood neighborhood, as a matter of fact. And Van White then went on to become elected first Black alderman, Black city council member in Minneapolis. Oh, check this out. This is a story about the director of the North High Band, and images of our kids, community kids, in the North Polar Band. Cheerleaders, great stuff. He's still around. My friend Leon Wallace Jr. is a realtor. He wrote a column on real estate, home ownership, wealth creation. So what does it mean? It means that we've been about trying to create wealth, intergenerational wealth in this community from the very, very beginning. We have not stepped away from that and continue today, emphasizing the power and the value of home ownership, of wealth creation in our community. I'm going to flip through a couple more pages here. We talked about KUXL radio. What's that, you might ask? The first paragraph in this article, Radio for Black People, I think it's called, if I get it here. I'm not sure. Yeah, there it is. This will be hard for you to believe, but there was a time when there was no Black radio in Twin Cities. Shouldn't be hard to believe. And that Black radio was limited to a daily segment on a station that had a sundown limit. It was an AM station, AM 1570, KUXL. And KUXL played probably regular white music all day long, probably country, probably pop. But then at 3 until sundown, they had Black programming. And let me read part of this article. Each Saturday afternoon from 1 o'clock to 2:30 p.m., A very special radio program is being broadcast on KUXL Radio, 1570 AM. What's so special about it? Well, it's produced by, for, and about Black people, hence its name, Radio for Black People. Additionally, the program attempts to meet several obvious needs of the Twin Cities Black community: politics, education, culture, and entertainment. The program, a public service broadcast, is produced by the Malcolm X Pan-African, AFRIKAN, Institute. Now, in its third year, the production was originally known as Dudes on a Stem, then later, What It Is, until the producers decided the direct and simple title to be chosen should be chosen so as not to confuse the weekday callers who participate in talk radio, which the station also offers during the week. The program consists of international, national, and local news. I'll flip this around. International, national, and local news. And what else can I say about it here? It also features African news, which is provided for the production by the management of KUXL. Well, it goes on. The Malcolm X Pan-African Institute encourages the Black community to listen in and share their thoughts with the program's producers. Is there an organization in your community you'd like to have more information about? A community leader that you'd like to know more about, or where they are coming from? You can call or write KUXL. What's the point? Point is, communications has been and remains a priority in our community. We talked about the Community Citizens Advisory Committee on Community Development. We talked about West Broadway. Here's a great picture of one of my friends, and who was the leader on the Pan-African Institute. This is Brother Yusuf Mjini in an ad that was in the second edition of Insight magazine. And this ad was promoting going back to get your degree at Metropolitan State University. Well, to me, this is just really cool to go back and look at these publications and to know that we were creating history, making history when we were doing it. That was number 2. The following month, volume 1, number 3, focused on business owners on West Broadway. The building they're standing in front of is at 1729 Lindale Avenue North. 1729 in Lindale Avenue North is now Masjid an Nur. It's now the North Side Masjid for the Muslim faith community, and I think Makram El Amin is the leader of that community there. Well, when this building was created, it was created as a restaurant. It was called Skip's Barbecue. And what's amazing about it is that this was the creation, the movement of Skip's Barbecue from Plymouth Avenue, which is like where I am right now, is 4 doors down from Plymouth Avenue on Thomas Avenue, North Minneapolis, where I live. I'll come back to that in a minute too, because the table I'm sitting at now is the table at which we launched Insight News. The space you're looking at right now is the space where we created Insight News when I bought this magazine from my employers, and then put together a small crew that worked here at this table for several months until my wife and partner Bobby kicked us out of the dining room and into the basement, which is where we stayed for about a year until we moved downtown. But this was volume 1, number 3, Insight the magazine, and it was just so much fun. I'm looking at the picture. This was a tribute to all of the leaders of the West Broadway Business Association. Particularly notice Hank's last name. I'm slipping on it now. One African American active in the association, and that was Hank Gray. Hank Gray owned the Standard gas station on the corner of West Broadway and Penn. That's where the Broadway liquor outlet is now. And for a while, it was a Burger King and another restaurant. And then finally, it emerged in its present form. Yeah, what's the point? The point is our community is always in flux, always changing. And what was here one day it's hard to remember how things used to be. Things get moved around, they get reshaped, reconfigured. And if you don't have the markers, don't have the documentation, if you don't have a way of keeping track of what happened, the fact that you existed may even be erased. You will be, you certainly can be forgotten. What you stood for, what you owned, what you built, all blown away like dust in the wind. That's why it's important that we look at, appreciate, and determine the value of paying attention to our own story, telling our own story, keeping our own story, and having the confidence to believe that we can build a picture of the future, a picture in which we win. Winning for us doesn't have to mean what winning means for them. On the one hand, what it means for them is irrelevant. We know in history that the winning that they pursued was typified or reflected the demise of our people, the annihilation of a continent of human beings. That's what they called winning. The enslavement of millions of Africans, the transportation of Africans from Africa to the New World. That was winning in their point of view. Well, be that as it may, we are at a point now where we must say and can say, we're going to win. We must win. And we can do that without having to imitate or model what winning is on what they have done by telling the truth of what they have done. And in our truth telling, demand accountability, truth and reconciliation. That's what's ahead, I think. So again, our friends over at U.S. Bank, John Warder was the president of the U.S. Bank. The U.S. Bank at that time was on Plymouth Avenue, right across from where Lucille's Kitchen was. I started talking about Lucille Williams and Lucille's Kitchen, and the U.S. Bank local branch was there as an anchor to help promote economic development and business opportunity and homeownership in our community. And I banked there, and they supported our business and our growth, and we thank them. And I'm going to show the last one of these here. And the first two editions of the publication kind of relied on the capabilities of the other organization. Well, no, we did the West Broadway business, as I said. We did the North High band. That was cool because they were a powerful band. And then we also, in volume number 4, presented this iconic and powerful message, this image. This is Black kids. Oops, I'll get this here. At the Sumner Olson Library. A beautiful resource, a beautiful asset for our community. And what is more powerful than a Black woman reading to Black children in a library? What is more powerful than the idea that the library is ours? It's a place that welcomes us. It's what we do. We enjoy books, we enjoy learning, and we simply are projecting that image of who we are as a community thirsty for knowledge, eager to learn, in love with words, in love with images, and eager to know and be a part of the world. So that was cool. You know, the houses on Plymouth Avenue now, this was the first marketing of the Plymouth Avenue townhomes. This is an ad by the Housing Authority, inviting people to sign up for and to move into the Plymouth Avenue townhomes. This was their invitation. We had letters to the editor. And I love this image. This kid was on the staff at Phyllis Wheatley Community Center. And we captured this picture of him with a bullhorn. I remember that one of the songs, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit, oh, here we go. Talk to the people. I called that my editorial kind of monitor. And I love this picture because here's a guy with a bullhorn talking, to the community. So here's an editorial called "It Makes a Difference." I haven't read this till now again, but I'm going to read it now to see what I was thinking back in 1974 in December. It says, I visited, I'll move this around this way, two angles here. I visited Kansas City, Missouri for the Thanksgiving weekend. My family and friends were guests in my aunt's home on 28th in Brooklyn. That house must be about 40 years old now. My deceased uncle bought it and moved his family into it before I was born, some 28 years ago. I was 28, okay. Through stories that passed from generation to generation, I learned that my family and parents and my mother's parents became tenants in that giant house a few years later. My earliest recollections of the house are that it was a large, stately, immaculately cared for home. All the families in the house worked together to keep it up. For sure, each family unit kept up their share of the work. A little cooperation went a long way. We were all proud of where we lived. As a guest in that same old stately home this weekend, I saw that the house had been further improved inside and out by regular maintenance and occasional additions. What really caught my eye, though, was that the whole block was equally improved. Consistently positioned gas post lanterns made each well-lit yard shine in its own right. I imagine the same day-by-day scenario of cooperation that unfolded in our house at 20th in Brooklyn, and imagine it was unfolding in other homes and communities as well. A little cooperation inside the house made possible a little cooperation outside the house. This cooperation makes strong blocks, neighborhoods, and communities. A little cooperation makes a big difference. Oh, that's a powerful message. It's a wonderful message. And that was published in December of 1974 in Insight magazine. Some of you might know Lottie Dixon. She was the person in the ad for the U.S. Bank, at that time, First Plymouth National Bank, in that month. So let me just flip through again to see what else there. I see an ad from Ezell Jones. He's around as an insurance mogul, tycoon. There was an ad from Penny's Supermarket. Penny's Supermarket is where the townhomes are now on Glendale, just north of Plymouth, 14th, 15th. Used to be a grocery store there. Let me flip through here quickly. Then I'm going to show you the video. And this was an article by Ezell Jones. So Ezell, if you're listening, check this out. You've been at this a long time. And obviously, brother, I appreciate the fact that you stepped up early and that we were able to step up with you to help promote your vision, your business. Gloria Samuels had an article in that edition called Return to the Motherland. Gloria Samuels, you might recall, was the daughter of one of our queens, Queen Mother Elizabeth Samuels. see, who else do we have here? We had an article on Camden, the Camden Area Outreach Office of Pilot City. What's Pilot City? Pilot City is now called North Point Health and Wellness. Pilot City was an early organizer. Oh, check this out. Photographs by celebrated photographer Gary R. Prentice. And this spread was called The Faces of Senior Citizens. This is powerful photography. That's the title of it there. I'm going to move it over. Check that out. I'm sorry, I'm not really good at getting this thing lined up. There we go. And we'll go up. Isn't that rich? Boy. Go this way. This piece. And these people are all iconic leaders, elders, known people in the community. Great photographs. Boy, beautiful. Let me try to go over one more shot to this page. I think that's a great picture. Okay. Flip over a little bit more. A season's greetings ad from all of us at West Broadway from First Minneapolis, that's the other U.S. Bank, and also an ad from North Community Family YMCA. A brother named Alfonso Freeman was the executive director there. I'll flip through a little bit more. There was a bar downtown, a nightclub called The Establishment. They put an ad, and that's where our people hung out. The Establishment was previously called King Solomon's Mines, and it was in the Fauché Tower in downtown Minneapolis. Article by Leon. Here's an article on TCOIC. So we were covering OIC from our very beginning, and OIC has been that powerful and that important an institution and resource for our community from its beginning. So this was like a major story on the presence, the purpose, and the power of the OIC mission in Minnesota. And here is a picture of its executive director at that time, Fred Felder. Let me move it around. Oops, wrong way. There we go. Fred Felder, powerful leader, great man, one of many, a generation of powerful people who led our community back in the 70s and 60s. And the headline said TCOIC's new executive director, Frederick D. Felder Jr., addresses the annual meeting of the TCOIC Board of Directors. And at his left was board chair John Bolger. John Bolger was a printer for Bolger Printing, an organization that was really a friend to our community as well. This article included profiles on some of the graduates of TCOIC. An ad here, now check this out, it's cool. Promoting our businesses, black business in our community. So this one is Cozy Bar and Lounge. I mean, just having this ad alone is classic. Cozy Bar and Lounge was on the corner of Plymouth Avenue and Lindale. Maybe it was a block or two east of Lindale. But Cozy Bar was one of several jumping locations for Black entertainment back in the day. And before the freeway came, that was a black entertainment district. Cozy was there. Let's see, what else? There were like 4 or 5 clubs in that neighborhood that were black owned and black controlled. And I'm sure back before I came here, there were both, bottle clubs, private clubs, and other stuff going on down in the near the projects in North Minneapolis. But Cozy emerged as a powerhouse establishment owned by none other than Jimmy Fuller. Jimmy Fuller went on after they closed the business and wiped out that business district to put in I-94. He opened up a new restaurant called Riverview on the corner of West Broadway. Well, not on the corner, but just north of West Broadway on River Road North, a beautiful facility. So he was advertising in the early edition. And then next to that, Odell Records. Odell was a brother who had a record shop on Plymouth Avenue. And these are not expensive ads, but, they had no history of our people really aggressively supporting our businesses. And Odell did. I appreciate him. I see him from time to time. If he sees this, if you see Odell, tell him I'm talking about him. And then almost a mentor and friend of mine and my family, Ken Jones Sr. and Norm's last name, Ken and Norm's Liquor was a black-owned liquor store on 38th in Chicago. They started off downtown. They bought it and moved to, I think, 48th in Chicago. It's still there, not owned by them anymore. But Ken Jones and Norm, I'll think of Norm's last name in a minute, were postal workers, and they pooled their money, saved their money, went into business, opened up a successful liquor store. And Ken Jones, by the way, was the dad of one of my best friends, Seytu Jones, the artist. And so Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Ken's, Seytu's mom and dad, beautiful, beautiful people, leaders in the community, wonderful spirits. And I just owe a lot to them and thank them for their business. Well, this is kind of cool, going down memory lane, looking at Insight as a magazine. And if check this out. This was an ad from Controlled Data Institute. They had training in technology and computers. Control Data Institute was a training facility, I believe, on Washington Avenue. And I think it's the building where the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority is now. So one of the people that graduated from that program was Henry Sullivan. Henry Sullivan was the brother of Louise Williams, not Louise Williams, but Lucille Williams, Lucille of the Lucille's Kitchen. And I'll turn the camera off here. And Henry graduated from that. He started, I believe, with Peter Hayden. They were the original founders of the Turning Point program, helping people address chemical dependency, alcoholism, bringing their idea of the need and the value of us to talk to us. It was cool. So before I go and show you this video, it's a great video that we produced for the annual convention of the National Newspaper Publishers Association when we were hosting a national convention here some years ago. I want to invite you all to support this work. We want to grow our presence on YouTube, and we need you to help us do that. I think we've got around 200 subscribers now. I'd love to have 1,000 to begin with. I'd love to eventually get to 10,000. I'm speaking this into the air. I'm speaking it into existence right now. And I'm speaking it to you because I'm asking you to help make this so. I believe you can. I believe you will. I believe I can. I believe I will. I believe that we together can create the linkages we need to grow and extend and share our voices and our visions. We have and must decide, we have decided, and we must continue to decide that we've got a role, that it's our job to be the creators, the co-creators of history. That's what we are called to do right now. And I want you to partner with me, with Inside News McFarlane Media, with this YouTube channel, with our social media platforms to create that opportunity. So what I want you to do is to subscribe to the this channel on YouTube, like it. If you're checking us out on Facebook or on our Instagram, like it and share it. Let people know that we're having these conversations 5 days a week. Typically on Mondays, I work with community organizations. Our intent, now that the elections have passed, is to go back talking with organizations like Hawthorne Neighborhood, Jordan Neighborhood Association, Central Neighborhood Association, Powderhorn, Philip, and other community organizations, neighborhood organizations, particularly ones that are led by African Americans and people of color, and invite them to do sort of a weekly town hall. All of them, all of us have a need to communicate more broadly, more extensively, more excitingly to the neighborhood. So I'm inviting the executive directors and the board chairs of the neighborhood organizations that serve Black communities in Minneapolis to be with me every Monday at 1:00. And let's talk about the question of power, the question of how we render the monumental results of the recent elections in Minneapolis, elections that ended up with 8 of 13 members of the present city council being people of color, 6 of whom are African Americans or African descent. Unheard of, never heard of before. Power is in our hands. The power to decide the future of the city is in the hands of people of color. Now is the time to organize neighborhoods and to direct, instruct, support policymaking at the city level in the city of Minneapolis that have our imprint on what the future will be. We have to be co-authors of the future. Okay, so so Tuesdays, obviously, we do our live radio show on KFAI. And just in summary, what I want to do with that show every Tuesday is bring in political and business leaders, not only here in Twin Cities, but from around the country and around the world. The idea is making the local global, making the global local. So my effort, my goal, and my intent is to bring in people from around the country, certainly, but from around the world. And that is even personal because we've done a couple of shows where I had family members. I had my cousins in London, cousins in Kingston, Jamaica, cousins that I never met in person before, from Boston, relatives I never met before, but they live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, cousins that I grew up with who live in Oakland, California. Us talking about our experience, talking about the George Floyd incident. A great conversation because we all demonstrate how what happens in the world affects all of us, no matter where we are. And our family values are both influenced by and influencers in how our communities react. I want to put family, our families, your family, at the center of the world. What you experience and what you think and what you know is important. And my job as a communicator is to validate you, to lift your voice. I want you to join this. Wednesdays, we want to talk about entrepreneurship, business creation, wealth creation. Thursdays, I connect with a group of lawyers and community leaders. The fun part about the lawyer group is that these are people that I went to school with in kindergarten, first, second, third grade. And now they're around the country doing legal work. Great conversations about Washington politics, international politics, social, and ethical ideas, what ethics mean, what morality means, the context for that, and the movement of our people and the movement of our nation. And then Friday, obviously, we've been doing this wonderful work in collaboration with Dr. Brevada Garrett Akinsanya, the principal at Brakens Consulting and Psychological Services, and the principal at the African American Child Wellness Institute. We bring together psychologists and therapists and community outreach workers to talk about mental health in general, but particularly mental health challenges in the era of COVID-19 and in the era of George Floyd, the twin pandemics that affect us all deeply daily. So we're doing great work. We want you to be part of the work. We'd love to have you on the channel in the program with us. Let me give you my email address. If you would reach out to me directly, I'd love to figure out how to bring you and your issues, your passion into this program as often as you're able and willing to do it. My email address, again, is al, A-L, at insightnews.com. al@insightnews.com. Okay, let's do this. We got about 10 minutes left, I think. We're going to go to this video. It's about a 5-minute video. I think it's a nice piece. I smile whenever I look at it again. I'm glad I found it again, but I want you to take it, capture it, and share it. It's a great story. Check it out. It's got kind of a long lead in, so there's a 30-second lead in here.
All right, let's go, let's get to work.
In 1974, Insight, a new publication marketed for the African American community, hit the streets of Minneapolis at a time when the major daily papers were losing circulation. Circulation in the Black community was low because, as Insight publisher and founder Al McFarlane puts it, reporting of our community by the existing media was casual, shallow, and lacked depth.
I felt that I can do one of two things. I can continue to criticize, or I can build a better mousetrap. I chose to continue to criticize, but also to demonstrate what could and should be. And I believe what we've created in Insight News is a capacity to present our community to our community and to the world in a way that reflects the full range, depth, and breadth of our humanity.
Over the past 20 years, in an era where many were cynical about the media, Insight has built a reputation of trust from its readers who rely on the contents of its publication, advertisers who get results, and a commitment to developing the talent in the African American community.
Well, I guess it has been kind of a fast track. I mean, moving from just doing some writing to editing. I know that had I been, had I gone downtown to work with another paper, I wouldn't have gotten the kind of treatment, the kind of opportunity and the kind of mentoring that I get working here at Insight.
We started recently a young man named Hakeem Probst, who he started at our paper as a photographer intern. Hopefully this experience doing real work in a valuable community newspaper that is going to be published, critiqued, is going to set him on a track that could lead to who knows what. Could he be another Gordon Parks? We don't know.
For Insight to grow to its full potential, it had to redefine how large advertisers viewed it. This problem was shared by other minority media. Large advertisers viewed them as too small to bother with.
We had the experience of going in and knocking on the door saying, look, Mr. So-and-so, would you buy an ad in my paper? Well, the advertiser would say, I'm sorry, but I gave in church on Sunday. He treated our minuscule businesses and our minuscule circulations like charity, not like business.
This was a
And
problem
obviously we're
McFarlane had
offended.
heard
We didn't
before.
like that.
You're too
But the
small
question is,
or
that's
too narrowly
reality for
focused to
that
be a major player.
advertiser.
The solution would be found in the concept of a patchwork quilt that takes colorful patches and binds them together. In this case, newspaper and radio stations of color from across the state of Minnesota would bond together to form the Minnesota Minority Media Coalition. Together, this coalition reaches 250,000 people of color in Minnesota. Now, all an advertiser has to do is make one call, write one check, and reach 250,000 African American, Native American, Asian, and Hispanic consumers.
Very unique, and I should say in the United States, the way we're handling is going to be between the coalition and Metro State University.
What worked in Minnesota is now working in 10 Midwestern states, this time for Black newspapers, who collectively serve a market of over 4 million African American consumers.
In walks Al, and he basically said, I have an idea. Al and the coalition, for the first time that I have ever been associated with, came in and said, we don't want token advertising. What we want is you to test us on the basis of our ability to generate sales out of a broad minority audience.
To date, Dayton Hudson has contracted over $1 million with the coalition. The strength of the coalition is a force that more and more regional advertisers and consumers in 10 states will come to depend on now and in the future.
The market needs to understand that the information address of Black people is the Black press of America. If you selling hamburgers, if you're selling liquor, if you're selling health products, if you're selling clothing, and if you want to sell to our people, I think now more than ever, the way you reach our people is through the Black press of America.
The Black press will continue to grow and play an important and essential role in bringing communication not only to the minority community, but the community at large.
So we've got our hands full in trying to create competing ideas that combat the negativity from outside, but in a sense have the mission of creating a public mind that allows our people to see our way to a future that is bigger, that's better, that's glorious, and that is productive, that is financial, that is whole, that is wholesome and healthy.
Nobody will save us for us, brother. Nobody will save us for us, brother.
Well, there you have it. What a great story. I enjoy listening to it. I enjoy telling it again, and I've enjoyed this time with you today. So I'm inviting you to like, to share, to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching on Facebook, go to YouTube, find our channel, and become a subscriber. Help me grow my subscription base to 1,000 to begin with, and then we want to go exponentially from there to 10,000. But let's begin. And the first thing is that you find the YouTube channel and like it, subscribe, and share. And if you are watching us on Facebook, same thing. Like us and share. I'm Al McFarlane. Join me again tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Conversations with Al McFarlane. We'll see you. Thank you. Bye-bye.